You know, the NFL and American football in general are a perfect example of everything that's wrong. Like everything. I'm going to go through a long list of reasons why I cannot stand football, American football, sorry, and how it really frustrates me that it's actually more popular now thanks to Taylor Swift, because it really is the perfect microcosm of the United States in general, but basically patriarchy, white supremacy culture, capitalism, all of it, imperialism. Look, you must be interested in that. Look at you. So I already did a video in this a couple weeks ago. Their fathers admitted that they literally don't really care about spending time with their own daughters until their daughters finally got interested in dad's hobby. Great, bro. I know you think you sounded like a good dad, but you actually sounded quite selfish. Why didn't you care about Taylor Swift and how much your daughter likes Taylor Swift until Taylor Swift started going to NFL games? Bah! But I've already covered that. There's also all kinds of problems. I don't have time to go into all of it. And I honestly don't know enough about this to do a whole video, even though some of y'all have asked me to. But schmeck trafficking is absolutely a problem at the NFL or Super Bowl, but it's a problem in general. This article and this woman's story are really important because she was trafficked and sold at the Super Bowl. So it's not just rumors. Then there's the whole Taylor Swift thing. I'm not a Swiftie, but I'm not anti-Swift either. I don't care. But, you know, she made it. Yay! She got 9,000 miles to go watch her boyfriend with her best friend who got married at a plantation. Okay. Despite so many reports. Sorry, but like, I hate all of them. Not just Taylor for doing this. I hate all of you, including Leonardo DiCaprio. He does things like make an 8,000-mile trip via a private jet to then take photos like this about how he cares about the environment. So Taylor Swift is not beyond reproach or criticism or whatever, and neither is this dude. I can make a whole video about what a hypocrite this guy is, but this is about the Super Bowl. I'm going to cover a lot in this video, but just a few more things about private jets. This Super Bowl was a super planet warming football game. One of the reasons why is because the 49ers have a whole lot of billionaires flying their private jets to come see the game. Also, it's not just Taylor Swift who should be criticized. This dude uses a private jet too. Patrick Holmes has signed a deal with a private jet company. Yeah, there's going to be a lot more private jets coming from San Francisco, you know, and where all the tech bros are going to fly in from, then, I don't know, places like Detroit or Missouri. Previous record for jets at a Super Bowl were 984 back in 2020. Over 1,000 were expected at last night's Super Bowl, up to 1,500. So I'm not just criticizing Taylor Swift. I'm criticizing all these selfish forkers. There's lots of data to back this up. I'm not against love. I love love. I'm married to a man I love. So people always like, whatever, you're just a hater of love. No, I'm a hater of selfish people. If she hadn't been flying her private jets to all these dudes' games and back and forth for Christmas and everything, I might understand going to this one. But honey, you're doing too much. This dude didn't even go to the Grammys. He's been to one of your concerts, and you're doing all of this. But, oh, what a great photo. We believe in love now. Remember, I tell y'all, don't do too much for men. This woman is flying 9,000 miles, is going to have a crazy case of jet lag to go back and do a bunch of concerts. Risked her reputation because she's getting so much crap for this. Rightfully so. Like, I'm sorry, but is it worth it? Because I literally hate you now because of all your jet stuff. I hate you. I don't hate you because I'm a misogynist. I hate you because you are destroying the planet like Leo and all the other ones, and you're shamelessly doing it. And we're supposed to just applaud because, you know, she gets to be there and applaud. Cheer for her man. Y'all, this is the high school crap that I was raised on. The men, you know, we are literally taught to be men's cheerleaders in every way. And this whole, like, she's gonna cheer in the stands with the football wives, just like the soccer players here in Europe, their model girlfriends cheer them on and blah. Like, God, I hate this culture so much. Like, we know you're his number one fan, but is he your number one fan just because he doesn't seem to actively hate you? I don't know. I mean, this couple is kind of cute, but she's doing too much. She's doing too much, y'all. Oh, but look, he gave her his jacket. Look, what a gentleman. I mean, I'm sorry, but this kind of bothers me. But, you know, all the interviews, the coach is like, oh, he was giving me a hug. Okay. That dude seems to have a temper. Is he an abuser? Absolutely, that is not what I'm saying. But you could not pay me to date a football player. That culture is so toxic. And these U.S. American football players have the worst record for domestic violence. Not just doing domestic violence, but enabling domestic violence. I'm pretty sure Michael Vick got more punishment for abusing his dogs than any of these men have for beating up their wives and girlfriends or literally unaliving them. But look, she can slam a beer. Like, Taylor, actually, like, whatever. I'm frustrated by her right now because she's doing so much to be this man's number one fan. And people love it. And I know they love love. And I know they want her to find somebody. I get that. But her dad is a prick. Sounds like her dad was the worst. No wonder she has a terrible track record. Just like slamming beers and slamming shots last night and flying across the world to cheer on her man. I don't know. I just hate this. I hate this so much. I feel like that's literally like someone could have been reading in the background the monologue of Cool Girl. Was she eating pizza with him too? She's just so chill and cool, supportive. But mind you, just like the Cool Girl and Gone Girl, Taylor's the one with all the money. The man was complaining about how much money it would cost for his family and friends to watch him at the game. And I understand that because it's a total ripoff. But that woman is worth so much more money than that man ever will be. So everyone's like, oh, are you going to give her a ring? How does that benefit her? If she gets a ring, I hope she signs a prenup because she is worth so much more than that man ever will be. What is the rush?
A party in Las Vegas, then get back to it. Hey, you still got to fight for your right, don't you? You got to fight for your right. Believe it, baby. I'll see y'all next year. Y'all hear this? We've been fighting for our right all day. How about a little Viva Las Vegas? Viva Las Vegas!
I would be so embarrassed if my boyfriend was doing that. But anyway, maybe he's a dork. I know he was singing her songs at the after party and they're pointing at each other and that's so cute. But I still don't care because that carbon footprint, you're literally in a climate crisis. But I hope you had fun, Taylor. I hope it was worth destroying your image a little bit more to go be there and support your man. Because before I didn't dislike Taylor, I didn't really care. Now I actively hate her. I don't hate her. I don't hate her. But also, when those scenes of him like yelling at the coach, you know how many men on Twitter were like, oh, look what Taylor's making him doing. See, I will always defend her against stuff like that. That is misogyny. Blaming the behavior of a man on the woman he's dating. As if when I saw that scene, I was like, oh my God, I hope he's not a violent man because he sure kind of seems to have a temper. I was worried about her. Not blaming her. So you'll see, like, I swear to God, I have Swifties who follow me. As long as you're respectful, that's fine. But some of the Swifties are the meanest people I have ever encountered on the internet. And every time I talk about Taylor, I have to block a lot of people. And that's insane. I will defend her against misogyny, but I will criticize her when it comes to the planet and her silence on Palestine, for instance, or other things that are, you know, legit criticisms of her. And I just hate that she has now brought women to become fans of one of the worst sports that is so racist and so sexist. Like, this lady's making a cake. Look at this cake. Like this, Taylor Swift has more power than almost anyone on the planet. And now the NFL is benefiting from that. Look at all these stats of how much more women are watching because of her. It's the Taylor Swift effect. I know I gave Taylor Swift a lot of crap in the last video. I will never forgive her private jet use. I don't care if she has a stalker. She does not have to travel this much. But, you know, there's plenty of other people. I also criticize Leonardo DiCaprio. I mean, all of them suck. But this guy shamelessly is flaunting his new jet with it's got bedroom. Like, this is all so insane to me. Because just friendly reminder, people who choose to do private jets. By the way, Leonardo DiCaprio, who I was criticizing, does take commercial flights to some of this stuff now. Okay? So anyway, these stars could do it. But even Leo's little super yacht is nothing compared to the private jet that he uses sometimes. Look at all this compared to domestic flights. These jets emit 5 to 14 times more emissions per passenger than commercial flights, and 50 times more than trains. Now, we know that trains aren't an option in the U.S. because of the government and lobbyists and the oil lobby especially. But the reason why we need to be talking about this is because the private jet use is getting worse. It is getting worse, y'all. Greenpeace revealed the private jet emitted a total of 5.3 billion tons of CO2 over the last 3 years. The number of flights will increase from nearly 119,000 in 2020 to 573,000 in 2020. This is insane. We are literally burning the planet, and they're just like, oh, I need to go to the Super Bowl. The level of CO2 emissions is equivalent to or even greater than the annual emissions of the entire countries like Uganda. This right here should scare people. According to the FAA, 1 out of every 6 flights they handle are flown by private jets. That is so frightening. That is so frightening to me, y'all. And this, moreover, carbon pollution has jumped by over 23% as private jet flyers have increased about a fifth since COVID-19. Cool. So we're in a recession, a housing crisis. Lots of people are permanently disabled because of a pandemic that still won't end. And but the billionaires are billionairing. Just to put this into perspective, I have so many things to say about the Super Bowl, but the private jet, record-setting private jet flights to it alone deserves 10 videos. But I'm going to go into the racism and sexism within the industry in just a second. Just bear with me. I want you to look at this. Putting into context, in popular travel routes like between Washington, D.C. and New York, a private jet plane emits estimated 7,913 pounds of CO2 per passenger on this route, whereas a commercial flight emits 174 pounds per passenger, and compared to trains that is 7 pounds. This means that flying private jets is responsible for about 45 times as many emissions as flying commercial. And over 1,100 times traveling by train. Again, it's not U.S. Americans' fault that the oil lobby won't give us trains. I swear to God, just like every single problem in the United States, I would not be surprised if somehow the lack of trains boils down to racism and anti-blackness, because I promise you every single problem, including healthcare, is about anti-blackness. I'm not even joking. There's plenty. Google it. What's crazy is that this Super Bowl was actually more sustainable than ones in the past. This may shock people, but actually Las Vegas and the way they've been handling water is more progressive than most Western cities. I actually know a lot about water because I was a raft guide and I studied this because I did not understand how messed up the politics were behind water rights until I started working on rivers and being like, wow, water is literally going to be as valuable as gold one day. And our archaic rules around water, oh God, I can't even get into it. But, Super Bowl advertising produced as much carbon dioxide as 100,000 Americans, or around 2 million tons of, look at this. Now, what most people may not know, I didn't see anything written about this. This is for the first time ever. This Super Bowl was fully powered by renewable energy. Now, of course, now that we know more about how renewable energy is funded by basically genocide in Ghana, literally all of this is because of exploitation. It's so frustrating. Even things that are hopeful end up being rooted in neocolonialism and racism and all the bad things. They're using 621,000 solar panels, right, to power this. Again, solar panels, all that stuff is coming from exploiting millions of people, having literal children. God, okay. I don't have time to go into all of this. God, not in this video, but please look into this stuff. Like their roof of that stadium is made from recycled plastic material. And it provides climate adaptability, insulation, and cell cleaning and durability. They also did all this stuff to deal with the waste. Rather than end up in landfills, around 1,200 pounds of food waste from the Super Bowl will be collected and donated to local livestock farms and used to feed animals. Oh, God. Well, that's a whole nother video. The way that we do meat in the U.S. But whatever. At least they're not throwing it away, I guess. All kinds of things they're trying to do. NFL green, blah, blah, blah. And yet, all that seems pointless when you think about the environmental impact of over 1,000 private jets flying to this stupid game. Because, according to one study, Taylor Swift's private jet emitted some 8,300 tons of carbon emissions in 2022. That's 1,184 times the average person's total annual emission in everything they do. Everything combined. But she pulled the classic white woman card, went after that 22-year-old who's been tracking all this stuff. I'm going to get, violence against me, blah. Yeah, I know, you've been stalked. That is a horrific thing, and I will never justify men stalking you. But you don't have to fly so much. And this information is public information, so. Again, Leonardo DiCaprio, major hypocrite, like so many of these people. Climate change is real. It's happening now. Blah, blah, blah at the Oscars. And then he flies in his private jet all over to hang out with his models. Okay. I want to tell y'all a quick story of another reason why I hate the Super Bowl. Back in 2011, when it was in Texas, there was a massive winter storm just before the Super Bowl. Because of that storm and the Super Bowl, and them having to make sure that Super Bowl happens because all the money going into it, they were responsible for basically cutting off gas in northern New Mexico, and I was living there at that time. The governor had to declare a state of emergency because of what Texas and the Super Bowl did to us. It's included Taos, parts of Albuquerque, and then all these small villages and towns, leaves thousands shivering all over the Southwest. Did you know that in New Mexico, where I lived, when this happened, all of us were without gas, and people were literally calling into the radio station KTOW and hi, I'm freezing to death. I don't know what to do. And literally, it was honestly when I realized how important community is, more than I've ever realized in my life. People were literally going to die in their homes because they didn't have gas. In New Mexico, you don't have addresses. Literally, your address makes no sense. It's follow the sagebrush, and then when a dog bites your tires, take a right. It's so hard to find people's places there. And people were literally had to use the radio station as a place to literally ask people to come and save them because they were dying in their homes of being cold. Because of what? Because of all the rolling blackouts in Texas and all that crap. The governor sucks. And all the stuff behind privatization, blah, blah, blah. But that is when I really started to hate the Super Bowl. They literally didn't care that people were freezing to death. Because the Super Bowl's got to go. Super Bowl's got a Super Bowl. Let's talk about other problems with the NFL and the Super Bowl. They have a serious race problem, particularly anti-blackness problem. This was in the New York Times. They've been sued because their racism problem is so bad. They don't hire black coaches. They hold black coaches to a higher standard. There are 32 team leagues. There are 32 teams in that league. Most of the players are black. Only one current coach is black. They also have a long history of racism. And this article was very enlightening. The NFL is a $1 billion plantation. 70% of its players are black. At this time, none of their coaches were black. They settle out of court. I'm going to get to the misogyny part in a second. I swear, I'm just running out of time. They settle out of court when dealing with their former players. And basically, these players are going through the brain diseases. I can't pronounce this, but this right here. These men have a permanent brain damage, and some even die by schmooze. And their justification is rooted in anti-blackness. So not only does it cause permanent brain damage, they settle out of court. They don't take care of their players. They just use them and toss them away, the way capitalism and white supremacy culture just do in general. But the settlement included the use of race norming, a practice in which the league assumed that African American players had lower baseline cognitive abilities and thus making it harder for them to receive the court-ordered payouts for their brain injuries, including during the NFL careers. Which is one reason why this headline is spot on. The United States we will not deal with our past. And it just keeps cropping up and continuing. It just looks different, but it's the same. So to put this into perspective, the NFL is a league that makes billions of dollars every year by staging athletic contests in which predominantly black players risk their brains for the profits of white owners and the entertainment of mostly white viewers. When forced to compensate former players for their injuries, the league assumed that African American players were inherently less intelligent than white players and stiffed them, many of them. It only stopped doing so a year ago after being sued. This was as of the time of this being written. But basically, like it says here, the NFL is just an example of a much deeper problem that reflects the systemic racism inherent in American society, U.S. American society. The sport is increasingly dominated by African American players, not because they are intrinsically more athletic, a myth perpetuated by sports journalists and fans alike, but because America provides fewer economic opportunities to poor boys of color. Now, again, there's so much more to be said about that. I'm just kind of recapping all the reasons why I hate this sport. And yet it's just an example of everything wrong. And like yesterday, I did a whole video on gambling and how that impacts this sport and how they have made legal gambling. It's growing. They're lowering the age of gambling from 21 to 18 and how this predominantly affects, like, even though it's men doing it, it affects women because our financial security is so often tied to men. And then it affects their families too. But I did a whole video on that. This is another way the NFL is just sucks for women. Let's talk about the way it exploits women and treats women like property. Oh, look, there's my dog. So the income for cheerleaders, you know, the ones who are dancing all sexy. And I actually respect cheerleading. Ever since I saw that Netflix documentary Cheer, I was like, holy cow, this is like the craziest sport ever. I don't like the idea of cheering on men for literally anything. Oh, look at, what is it? What is it, Mose? So I hate the idea of cheerleading, but the sport of cheerleading I find to be, especially like competitive cheerleading, like, holy crap. But in terms of the cheerleaders who are in the NFL, they make, can you, $22,500? Can you, what? The New York Times did a great piece on this a while ago about all these cheerleaders who are like suing these NFL teams. And this was based on not only interviewing people, but they reviewed emails and texts. Like, as much as I can't stand the New York Times sometimes, when they have a reported story, especially when it comes to like abuse, they always come with receipts. So one of the things that they have is all these, they basically, like, the NFL reminds me of like the same way that the way that it is so rooted in anti-blackness, it's also rooted in like purity culture, which is also tied like this to anti-blackness. I owe you all a video on that. I learned that growing up in the South, that white purity is based on anti-blackness, misogynoir in particular, but just anti-blackness in general. And so the NFL just perpetuates the same crap. This like, oh, you know, and grape culture as well. Like, look at this. They have anti-fraternization policy that requires cheerleaders to avoid contact with players in person or online, even though the players are not penalized for pursuing such engagements with the cheerleader. The cheerleaders must block players from following them on social media and cannot post photos of themselves in like the gear of the team that they literally have a job. Oops, sorry about that. They can't place photos of wearing the gear of the team they work for, denying them a chance to market themselves. So like the only reason why they're doing this is to possibly get, you know, social capital and be able to be influencers. But then they're like, no, you can't wear our stuff. We don't want anybody to know that you work for us. When it comes to you making money for anyone like yourself, you can only make money for us. Cheerleaders are told not to dine in the same restaurants as players or speak to them in any detail. If a Saint, this is the Saints team particularly, enters a restaurant and a football player is already there, she has to leave. And if she's there and he arrives, she's supposed to leave. There are more than 2,000 players in the NFL. And many of them use pseudonyms on social media, but cheerleaders must somehow find a way to block each one of them, while players have no limits on who can follow them. Have you ever seen placing the blame on women, like make sure you don't get graped, rather than, hey, men, don't grape? This is like the embodiment of that mentality. But the team says its rules are designed to protect the cheerleaders from players preying on them. Okay, then hold the players accountable. But no, it puts the onus on the women to fend off men. Shocker. That's what we're always having to do. And if, God forbid, they wear, a revealing skirt that is part of their uniform and maybe get graped by one of these men, it's her fault because she didn't block them, I'm sure. If the cheerleaders can't contact the players, then the players shouldn't be able to contact the cheerleaders. Period. So you see how purity culture and grape culture is so alive and well in this industry. And she goes on to say this antiquated stereotype of women needing to hide for their own protection is not permitted in America, and certainly not in the workplace. Well, I'm sure it's actually still happening. But that's what they're basically actively making them do. Buffalo Bills cheerleaders, before the squad disbanded in the face of wage lawsuits, said that they were told to do jumping jacks and tryouts to see if their flesh jiggled. And had to attend a golf tournament for sponsors where high rollers paid cash to watch bikini-clad cheerleaders do backflips. Their Facebook pages were monitored by team of officials without their knowledge. The Oakland Raiders settled a lawsuit over their wages and are now paid minimum wage. That's a win, is to get minimum wage and overtime. I mean, and then the Bengals, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Jets, they've all been sued too over poor pay and requirements that they pay for their own makeup, uniforms, and transportation. Do y'all understand how much money that is? I don't even wear makeup, but from what I learned from all women I see, it seems like an ungodly amount of money just for makeup, not even including hair, but transportation too. If they say anything other than like, hello, great game, they get in trouble. And even though they are literally on the field with these dudes, they work with these dudes. If one of these dudes follows them on Instagram, they get in trouble, not the dude. So this one woman had to make her Instagram private, which defeats the purpose of her being. I mean, maybe she's doing it, she loves cheering, right? Like, I'm not saying that. But one of the reasons why women go on dating shows, they do this stuff, is because we know this is how we secure our future, our income. We already don't make enough money on the dollar to men, especially if you're a black, indigenous woman of another woman of color, but especially black women. So, women in general are screwed, but the more marginalized you are, the more screwed you are. And yet the things that they're trying to do to make sure that they actually can do something with this major accomplishment, competing with all these women to get on these teams, and they have to make their account private. That is crazy to me. This one woman from the lawsuit, she's been a cheerleader since junior high school and used to accompany her mother to the Saints practices. She routinely drove 2 hours from her home to go do these practices and for off-field appearances. The cheerleaders were allowed to work for the team for only 4 years, and they received $10.25 an hour. They have a lot of real weird rules too, like being required to chew chewing gum. That you have to have another job, a full-time job, while at the same time, this is a very time-consuming job. Why do you have to because they don't pay them. That's probably why. They are required to be in calendars. Oh, and the way that the military-industrial complex is tied to football, they recruit people for the military at these games. That and monster truck rallies. These calendar shoots are mandatory. There are some men cheerleaders, yay. Auditions are long and hard, and yet, despite not paying these women, they bring in a ton of revenue for the football dudes. Despite the players on average getting a roughly $860,000 a year, the Seattle Seagulls, for instance, get $100 or $200 per game. And all this so they can endure groping and harassment? No, thank you. Seriously, the NFL is trash, and yet it's now more popular than ever.